Tonight, an explosive new documentary about the alleged 215 graves in Kamloops. It's October 13th, and this is the Ezra Levant Show.
Shame on you, you censorious thug.
We begin tonight with the horrific discovery at the former Kamloops Indian Residential School in British Columbia.
They would shave our heads and beat the hell out of you.
These are crime scenes.
The residential schools was a genocide of our people.
215 children were found in unmarked graves.
Because of your white privilege, you can't take our truth.
The federal government is ready to dispense
$10 million.
$8 million, $27 million to find unidentified burial sites.
We will follow the evidence. We will follow the science. We are here for truth-telling.
Neo-tribal elites are pretending that it's been found that there's 215 children.
There's a difference between murders and children dying in the building.
There's no list of names of missing children at any of these schools.
That's been my battle for 4 years, that there wasn't murder, there wasn't genocide.
Why do you think they are holding to this mass grave story?
There have been all kinds of political gains as a result of this story.
This week, the Senate passed Bill C-15, aimed at aligning Canadian law with the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People.
That law was a surrender of the province.
They have a right to the land. They own it. All of it. So is that what we're saying?
Could someone be benefiting from land being handed away willy-nilly?
They're worried about property rights and how it could possibly affect them with the DRPA legislation.
You're not getting the truth.
It feels like there is an incredible desire to keep this down.
The reaction from those with various kinds of interests will be fierce.
This member's incoherent and consistently racist posturing in this House against Indigenous and First Nations.
Denialism is hate.
Is there an end? Are we ever done reconciling?
Why haven't you dug in the ground yet with the millions of dollars you receive?
All these millions that are the revenue that are going through my dam.
It's not empowering Aboriginal people at all.
Because we have no idea where all this money is going.
The journey of reconciliation is a long one, but it is a journey we are on.
Wow. Absolutely riveting, chilling, in fact. What a bold deviation from the official narrative. An official narrative, you heard the phrase denialism. Politicians actually proposing to make it a crime to disagree, a crime to seek more facts before concluding that indeed 215 children were killed there, let alone at other places. This is the trailer for a new documentary scheduled to be released imminently, produced by 1BC. 1BC being the British Columbia political party. And joining us now is an incredible panel of experts. If I had to choose any three people to review this film, I could do no better than the assembled group herein. Dallas Brodie, an MLA for 1BC. Professor Frances Widdowson, an expert in these matters who has been deplatformed, or at least they've tried to deplatform her for her views. And Rebel News' own Drea Humphrey, who has done her own documentary work in this subject herself. What an incredible trailer and three incredible women to talk about it. Dallas, let's start with you. You are with the political party 1BC. Just for our viewers outside of British Columbia, can you introduce yourself and your party? Who are you and who is 1BC and why did you make this movie?
Thank you, Ezra. So 1BC is a brand new party in British Columbia. It's only been around for about 3 months now. And we formed as a result of me being expelled from the Conservative Party of British Columbia back in March, when I pointed out that there were 0 bodies at the Kamloops Indian Residential School in a tweet and a subsequent video that I did where I talked about this further. And what we did, and a couple of other people left the party at that time, and one of the other people who left decided to form this party with me. And it's been excellent since we've been going. We have gotten all new, we've got a purpose now to basically do what the Conservative Party of British Columbia had promised it was going to do when it first formed. Unfortunately, the Conservative Party of British Columbia really moved away from its original mandate. And so I feel like 1BC is now doing what I was hired to do back when I got elected in the fall of 2024.
Now, it's very difficult to say some of the things that this documentary says. You can see you're going to be called racist. You're going to be called a denialist, which sort of rings like the phrase Holocaust denier. They're trying to make it a grave sin. Are you ready for the blast of political correctness that's going to come your way?
Yes, I am, because I've already been through this. I was called terrible things back in March when I was expelled from the party. And at first, yes, it was unpleasant. But I've told many people that once you've walked through the fire of this, you basically get used to it and you understand that it goes with the territory. When you are speaking truth, you get called names. And there are huge vested interests that want to keep this truth down and do not want voices like mine, Drea's, Frances's, anybody's to be heard. And they will stop at nothing. They will call you every name in the book. But you know what? I know when they're calling me names that they can't make the argument with me politically. Let's get past the name calling and let's talk about the issues. And that's what I'm trying to get to. And so, no, I'm ready for it. And it's going to come. It comes all the time at us. But more and more people are listening and they're not being deterred by these silly names that they're calling people.
I'd like to go to Professor Frances Widdowson next. Professor, you have a compassion for Indigenous people. I've heard you talk about the social dysfunction and the needs of the community. Yet because you refuse to acknowledge false facts, the false accusation of the 215, quote, bodies that have, all we know is that they are anomalies by ground penetrating radar. You have been hounded out of university and they've tried to make you persona non grata. They've tried to practically ban you from even talking about it. Tell us a little bit about what you went through simply for taking an academic's scholarship approach to the truth as opposed to a political spin doctor's approach to the truth.
So in terms of my own employment at Mount Royal University, which I am demanding to be reinstated because of the fact that it was a mob, it was an academic mobbing because of my views on indigenization, critical views on indigenization. And one aspect of that is the residential schools and by extension, the claim of the remains of 215 children. But then I started to do documentaries with Simon Harrigot on the claim, the Kamloops claim, and I'm currently actually doing another one with him, and then do the street epistemology at a number of universities across Canada, Spectrum Street Epistemology, where we would examine claims such as the remains of 215 children have been confirmed at the Kamloops Indian Residential School, and you can either strongly agree or strongly disagree. And I thought this was going to be my way around the cancellation, which was happening because you don't need space to be allocated by the universities. But now, after going to University of Winnipeg, my cameraman and I were surrounded by an angry mob. My cameraman feared for his life that day on September 26th. I was assaulted, roughed up, and had, a soft drink poured over my head. And my mats, my street epistemology, strongly agree, strongly disagree mats stolen and vandalized, and my sound system had water poured all over it. So things are escalating into a very nasty direction. And this is not an aberration. This is what happens when you demonize people and prevent them from examining the evidence which is associated with these claims. And I think it is correct that the Kamloops case is the card in the house of cards. Mm-hmm. And if you start to pull on that card, you are going to see a collapse of the existing infrastructure with respect to all the Aboriginal industry, or what Brodie's team calls the reconciliation industry, which is an extension of the Aboriginal industry. Before we go any further, let me just ask about that assault on you.
Were police called? Were any arrests made? What happened there? I mean, do you know who the attackers were? Were they part of a organized mob like Antifa or something?
So the police were called by several people. We have the names of about 5 people called the police. The police did not come. That is a big question as to why that occurred. The president of the Faculty Association sent out an email at 10 o'clock in the morning, 4 hours before I was assaulted, saying that residential school denialists would be spreading lies on the University of Winnipeg campus, and this needed to be combated. And a whole bunch of Indigenous gangsters showed up in combat fatigues. And so we have the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms is at work now. I have filed a police report. Daniel Page, my videographer, has filed a police report, and we are currently getting all our documents to the police to have a reckoning on what took place on September 26th at the University of Winnipeg.
That's just shocking. And I think there's a straight line from the university administration saying combat, stop this hate, and people doing what they're told by authority. It's far worse than mere name calling. It's violence. And I do say, if the shoe were on the other foot, if it was an Indigenous activist who was mobbed by, let's say, white, like the Proud Boys, and that's a demon that the left, I think, imagines. I think the police would be all over it, and it would be a top news story in the country. Let me ask you one more thing about the role of the CBC state broadcaster. Professor Widdowson, I had the pleasure, it was an absolute pleasure of listening to a recording you made when you were interviewed by a CBC reporter. And there's just one part I want to play briefly, where you were asked why you insist on being skeptical to this central claim, the 215 dead bodies. Other politicians have said mass grave, which is even more dramatic and less supported by the facts. And the CBC reporter said, basically, can't you just accept it as a political favor? Can't you just suspend disbelief and go along with this socially accepted statistic? Let me play the clip of the CBC practically pleading with you to stop asking questions. Here it is.
I'm wondering why it's so important to you to discredit this.
I believe in the truth. I think the truth is important. Do you think the truth is important?
I'm going to ask, do you...
You should read Grave Error. I think you really need to read that book because you do not have an understanding at all.
Ma'am, I don't need that from you. Thank you.
Well, you are a seriously incompetent journalist. And this is what the CBC has sunk to these days.
I don't think that you accusing me or shouting at me is very helpful to your case.
Well, I don't really think I'm shouting at you. I'm just telling you, for someone who is here doing an interview on this case.
Please stop. Please stop. That's enough. This interview is now over. Thank you for your time.
Well, you're going to hear more about this.
Professor Widdowson, what do you make of the CBC? I think right there, they basically admitted that what you said is true, but can you please just stop being inconvenient with your truth?
And this is the big problem, is that the pursuit of truth has been destroyed in universities, in journalism, and so on. And interestingly, the CBC office is right across the street from the University of Winnipeg. The CBC just took it upon itself that it was not going to cover that horrible sequence of events that took place that day because they are trying to support the activism of the Aboriginal industry, which benefits a very small group of lawyers, consultants, and neo-tribal elites, but leaves the marginalized Aboriginal population without any assistance to help them overcome the terrible problems that they are currently facing.
You know, one of the things that came through in your interview with the CBC, by the way, in my mind, was your compassion for actual problems on Indian reserves and in the community. And it seems to me that so many progressive activists would rather debate, abstract ideas or emotions rather than actually fixing the problem on reserves. I know that's something that you and Professor Tom Flanagan have talked about before. But let me move on to Rebel News' Drea Humphrey, who was a very early reporter on this subject. Drea, your documentary film, The Buried Truth. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how you physically tried to find the truth on the ground by driving to Kamloops. Tell us a little bit about your experience in trying to be a detective on the ground.
The crazy thing is, as a citizen journalist, it was so confusing to look around at my peers in media and say, why is no one asking the obvious questions? How on earth did the Kamloops band come up with the precise 215 children's remains, some as young as 3 years old, with GPR? I'm going to backtrack before the documentary on the 1-year anniversary to my first report. I went out there believing something must have been discovered. Who on earth could make something up? And as I got there and I'm researching along the way, as my cameraman is driving, like, GPR is, you're not able to make a claim like this. What am I missing here? So I remember my first report on this, unlike any other person I saw in media, was, many questions still remain about what lies beneath the soil. And then I just kept following it over a year, and it kept becoming more and more unbelievable, especially in July of 2021, where we're waiting for that report, which is going to explain it all, coming from Dr. Sarah Bollier, and she gets up there and starts rewording what the world believed to be true. She's no longer referring to them as children's remains. And her report, when it came out, said probable graves, anomalies, words like that. And of course, that didn't catch like wildfire. That good news that they had not found the bodies did not sweep across the nation. So around a year after, we went to kind of just prove that to date, no bodies have been found. That was now 3 years ago. We offer that for free because sadly, still so many people don't know that simple truth. You can find that at kamloopsdocumentary.com. And to, piggyback on what Dr. Widdowson said, it is escalating. The closer we actually get to truth on this issue, despite the phrase truth and reconciliation, the more hostile it gets. I've had some of my speaking engagements being targeted. In Victoria, I had someone literally go to the city and saying, you're letting a residential school denier in. I've had protesters. Thankfully, I didn't experience what Dr. Widdowson experienced, although Rebel did have security by my side. But, a swarm of people, the Marxist mix of trans activists and I guess residential school denial activists calling me that. But really, I'll say it again, it's good news that not just at Kamloops, but also at the over 100 bands that have made similar claims of these nefarious graves, not a single body has been discovered to date.
One of the interesting scenes in your documentary, Kamloops, The Buried Truth, was when you accidentally, I think, bumped into the chief. I think it was an unscripted, unexpected moment. And holy smokes, did she quickly, once she realized that you were from the news, did she shut that down quickly? Here's an excerpt from Drea's documentary published by Rebel News, The Buried Truth. Take a quick look at this.
Go over there, right?
Yeah.
If she's gonna go, which way is she gonna
Probably down there, I'd imagine that's the office.
I could be help you. Do you know why the crosses are no longer there along with the missing women and children?
Yes, I do. They are
So I've done a few reports on it, and I think the main question most people ask is, what is the timeline for excavation to find out, what happened in this grave site?
Well, for myself, again, we didn't have a scheduled interview. Okay. And two, we are still working, and we have just been assigned an interlocutor that has been, as a part of the press release with Minister Mehdi and with Minister Mark Miller. Okay. We just did that a couple of days ago, so that's also on the website.
Oh, so it is going to happen. There's going to be excavation.
I'm not saying there's going to be excavation, but we are working steps to determine what's going to be taking place. Okay. And that's why the interlocutor, the special interlocutor, has been identified, and we're working through those steps.
Awesome. That's brave.
They can find. I just, I work for my people.
Yeah.
I speak the truth.
Yeah.
And I'm upholding our elders, our survivors. Sure. I'm upholding the unmarked graves with dignity and with honor and with utmost respect.
Well, that was sticky, but at least we got some more answers for the public after a year of trying to do so.
Drea, I would think that if someone had jurisdiction over a crime scene, and the chief of an Indian band has a lot of power, I would say even more than a mayor would in a city, that I would leave no stone unturned to find the truth, to excavate extremely carefully and with great sensitivity. If it were indeed a crime scene with bodies there, you would want to be careful. But it's been the opposite. Not just no investigation, but no answering questions. What did you make of that? And have you seen the chief or anyone else from the band or anyone else from the police? Have you seen them provide any information? Like, it just doesn't look like they want the truth to come out.
Yeah, as soon as I started asking what's going on with this money, will you be excavating, it was shut down. And that was after a year of trying to get a hold of the chief or the media. If you asked any questions that didn't go along with the narrative, it was shut down. And that's the same thing. The latest narrative, as far as anybody asking a question they don't like, is that those questions are founded in white supremacy. That's exactly what that band came out and said. It's not just residential school denialism, which no one's actually doing. Now it's white supremacy, if you ask these things. Clearly, I'm not a white supremacist. And it's similar with the more recent claims from the Seashell band just in August saying, oh, look, we found, 41, I believe, more graves with GPR again, and, getting their installment of funds in again, and saying, but we're not going to take any questions. We're going to do this very sensational, piece for the world to share and let you know as well, no questions right now.
I should note, and it's not important to me. I like to think I judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. But not only are you Black, you are Indigenous yourself. I don't think that stops you from wanting the truth. In fact, if anything, it might motivate you more to find the truth. So I'm grateful for your journalism. Now, Dallas, we've just played the trailer to your film, and it's coming out shortly. Tell me how you plan to distribute this, because I am just going to guess that the same mainstream media, or regime media, as I sometimes say, that has blacklisted you and demonized you, I'm going to think that they're either not going to mention this film at all, or if they do, they're going to condemn it as racist, etc. But I think they're going to just ignore it completely to try and cut off all oxygen. What are your plans to distribute your documentary?
Well, we are planning to have a private screening in advance, and then after that, it will be on makingakilling.ca. It will also be released on my X account. It'll be released on YouTube, and if YouTube shuts it down, we'll probably pursue Rumble. And we've already makingakilling.ca already has 500,000 views.
Really?
Yep, the trailer already has 500,000 views. So it's already out there. People know about it. We're getting a lot of requests to find out when. And I don't think they're going to be able to put this back in the bottle. People want to know. And we are pursuing this on the basis that when I kicked the hornet's nest of this, I really didn't know the magnitude of what was behind all of this. When I first did that one single post about what was going on at the Law Society of BC with a lawyer named Jim Heller and him being labeled a racist for bringing to light the fact that there were incorrect things in the mandatory program at the Law Society that lawyers have to take about Indigenous culture. This is where he ended up suing the Law Society for defamation. And as the Attorney General critic, I posted something saying that at the Law Society, we have to have truth. And this is outrageous. There are 0 bodies found at Kamloops Indian Residential School, and what is going on over here. And that's what started this whole thing. So this is really a journey for me to go around the province. We spent the first half of July traveling the province in a van. We had our videographer. We were all traveling together, and we went around and talked to people about how DRIPA, UNDRIP, all of these acronyms that a lot of people still don't understand what they are, how they are really impacting British Columbia and Canada. But our focus in this was mainly what is starting in BC, because we've realized that a lot of people don't understand the magnitude of what's happened here. I mean, this documentary is about the the reconciliation industry and how it has used Kamloops and other false narratives to basically trigger the surrender of Canada.
When you say DRIPA and UNDRIP, that refers to the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Persons, which, if it's adopted as a legal framework, could put in jeopardy any claims that non-Indigenous people have to land. It's literally taking a land acknowledgement and turning it into a kinetic form of law. So I think there's more at stake here than just a narrative. I think there's billions of dollars of land and resources.
And we know, Ezra, since the NDP took power in 2017 in BC, our team alone, we've been doing the digging into the numbers. We found it's up to $8.5 billion in just voluntary cash. That's just cash. Cash payments have been made since 2017. And it's been going up and up and up. And this is where we're headed. And under UNDRIP, there are 3 very important pieces in UNDRIP that people need to be aware of. The first one is that Article 26 requires that we give all land back to Aboriginal groups, all land. There's no qualifier there. The other one, it says Articles 19 and 32 give a veto over all decisions made by the governments that are here, the elected governments. The third piece is that all of these endeavors get funded indefinitely by the non-Indigenous governments.
Yeah. Well,
that's where we're at.
That's quite an extreme world, and some might think it's unthinkable, but the Overton window is certainly shifting. Professor Widdowson, you have been at the center of a storm, and you've not just at your university, but the assault we just described. Would you say that the mania that you were subjected to be deplatformed and then assaulted, has it receded at all? Is the pendulum swinging back? Are people maybe taking a step back from the hysteria? I mean, I just think of Jagmeet Singh using the phrase mass grave. Does that still have the momentum, or is the truth finally getting its shoes laced after the lies run around the world already? Like, has things swung back, or is it still as crazy as ever?
Well, it depends on where you're looking. In terms of the public, there is evidence that the public initially in a survey, I believe it was 60% thought that there was a mass grave at Kamloops. More recently, a survey was done which said 2/3 of the public think that more evidence is required before they come to conclusions about Kamloops. Now, the survey was worded differently in both, so it's not quite clear how much the public opinion has moved. So that's one promising area. The problem is with the Aboriginal industry and the allies of the Aboriginal industry. They are still as determined as ever, and probably more determined, with the attempts to criminalize what they call residential school denialism. And when I was in Winnipeg, I talked to a number of elders about this, and people believe that 215 children are buried in the Kamloops apple orchard. And if you deny that, if you raise questions about that, challenge that, you are seen as someone who is disseminating hate. And this is a very strong belief that exists amongst the associates of the Aboriginal industry, because what it is about is destroying the truth, the idea of truth. So truth is a universal, which we are all trying to work towards and weigh evidence to see whether something is true or false. The Aboriginal industry has put in place this idea of relative truth, which is whatever the knowledge keepers, what's called knowledge keepers, believe to be true. And that is a very destructive idea. And if this is continuing, we won't be able to have any conversations anymore, because challenging the knowledge keepers is seen as a hateful act, and we cannot move forward in terms of trying to create a better world for both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people unless we are firmly grounded in a sense of common reality.
You know, I would go so far as to say the allegation that there are 215 bodies there is a conspiracy theory. It's disinformation. And even if it is eventually scientifically debunked, it has been propagated so forcefully with so many resources by so many pundits and so many reporters that I think that even if it is debunked, some people will believe it for all time. They'll think, and I think that that is part of it. It's sort of like, in a massive sense, sort of jury tampering. Like, can you get a fair trial if everyone in a town thinks you did it? Can you get a jury pool that is neutral? I think the CBC and other media are engaged in a kind of mass jury tampering. They want everyone to believe it just based on their insistence, and to heck with what the facts say later. Drea, I want to ask you one last question, because Lindsay Shepherd, who came to fame a few years ago for fighting against woke political correctness at her university, Wilfrid Laurier, she's moved to British Columbia, and she was recently fired for, I suppose, a second time over this same issue. Tell us a little bit about Lindsay Shepherd, because I suppose that goes to my earlier question, is the mania still out there? And I suppose the answer is yes. Fill us in on the latest, Drea.
Well, absolutely. It's much like Dallas Brodie's situation, where she was booted out of caucus for standing on this very important truth that really impacts British Columbians and Canadians alike. The same thing just happened to Lindsay Shepherd, who was serving as the communications officer, I believe. And people don't realize this, both Dallas Brodie and Lindsay Shepherd are kind of the OG as far as being a part of the beginning stages of the BC Conservatives finding its new success politically, almost actually winning in the last election. Now they've lost 2 for standing on truth. Lindsay Shepherd put out a statement, a tweet, not a statement, just a tweet on her personal page on Truth and Reconciliation Day, pointing out, how it's all basically just a sham. We're raising the flag on that day, even though that day was birthed out of this false claim, this 215 claim, and all of the stuff that's been associated with that propaganda, the understanding of the churches burning. And so she got the boot, just like Dallas Brodie did. John Rustad decided she was too much of a liability for standing on that truth, accused her of causing a provincial-wide rift, to which in my interview with Lindsay Shepherd, she points out it's basically just, two councils, kind of like what Dr. Widdowson was just saying about where the force is coming to shut this down immediately when anybody challenges the reconciliation industry. So she was pregnant, just about to go on maternity leave, and kicked to the curb for speaking to this issue.
That shows how explosive it is. What an interesting conversation. I'd like to thank Drea Humphrey, our BC Bureau Chief, who's coming to us live on location at the Ostrich Farm. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us from there. Professor Frances Widdowson, who has been at the center of a battle both of academic freedom and simply finding the truth, and Dallas Brodie, an MLA in British Columbia, who has focused on this issue despite the political cost to herself. You can find this trailer, and it sounds like the documentary itself will be released at makingakilling.ca. Thank you so much, each of our panelists. This was really a dream team to talk about this. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Well, that's our show for today. Until tomorrow, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, to you at home, good night and keep fighting for freedom.